Welcome, Guyana, to another episode of The Environment Matters. I am your moderator, LaDonna Kisoon. It's a pleasure to have you with us, joining us for this season. A happy August to you. I do hope that you continue to stay safe in this pandemic. Remember, you are responsible for yourself and for your loved ones. This month's episode focuses on the pressing matter of mercury use in mining. This issue is not only isolated to Guyana, but it is a global phenomenon. Mercury is not only harmful to the environment, but it also impacts human health. Yes, I said human health. So this episode is not only for our miners, but you can also share it with your friends, families, and neighbors. Now, this program will feature a project the Government of Guyana, through the Ministry of Finance, signed a letter of agreement with the United Nations Development Program, clearing the way for the implementation of the Mainstreaming Biodiversity Project. Now, this is a project that is funded by the Global Environmental Facility, also known as GEF, to tune of 1.4 million US dollars for 84 months. During our episode, we will hear from the implementing agency, which is the EPA. So stay tuned. So, who better to tell us about the goals of the Mainstreaming Biodiversity Project than the implementing agency, the Environmental Protection Agency? Here today we have Mr. Collis Primo and Mr. Romario Hastings to tell us a little bit more about this project. So, welcome to both of you. This is actually my first time I think interviewing either of you. I think Romario and I had some interaction for media before, but yes, this is going to be fun. So, I would really like for you to tell our listening audience who you are outside of, your names. So I'll start with you, Collis.
So as LaDonna would have introduced, I'm Collis Primo, Senior Environmental Officer within the Mining Division of the Environmental Protection Agency. Been there a while.
Yes, when he says a while, he's been there a while. Romario.
Well, I haven't been there a while. All right, so my name is Romario Hastings. I'm also an environmental officer within the mining sector or unit. I have been there for a short while compared to Mr. Primo, but we have worked quite extensively within the sector in terms of the many mining activities and projects you're going to find in the country.
Very good. And for those who are not very aware, Romario is a great photographer. If you follow us, you'll notice a lot of his work is featured on our Facebook page. And he himself is also featured on our Facebook page.
Thank you.
So, if you have an interest, just check it out. So, we're here today to discuss the Mainstreaming Biodiversity Project. And I'm sure a lot of persons actually want to know what the project is really about. So could you just give us a little bit of an overview on what the project is really about?
So thank you, and thanks for the opportunity for us to spread some more word on the project. As LaDonna would have indicated, the project is the Biodiversity Mainstreaming Project. It's a project that will be implemented by the EPA for the next 84 months, starting July 1st, or they're wrong, yeah, when the inception meeting was launched. The project basically has two main objectives. One is to basically look at the legal and institutional framework that exists within the agencies for implementation, and at the same time also to build capacity in terms of the miners so as to so that they could undertake much more environmental sound mining practices so as to protect global significant biodiversity, to reduce mercury contamination, and also to improve local livelihoods and health of those persons that will come into contact with mining and mining related activities. There are about 5 agencies that will be responsible for the implementation of this project. These agencies are the Guyana well, UNDP was the first one, since they are our partners in implementation too. The Guyana Forestry Commission, the Guyana Geologies and Mines Commission. There is also the Ministries of Marine Affairs, and there is the Guyana Lands and Surveys Commission. So those are about the 5 agencies that are will be working along with the EPA in terms of implementation of the project.
Great. So, as you would have mentioned, EPA is the implementing body for this project, and you've also mentioned a number of major stakeholders. So, what exactly is their role in all of this?
Good question. So their role remain what is in order to do what they normally do on a regular basis to ensure that their aspect of their legal documents are adhered to or comply with. You know that mining has a significant impact on, say, for example, forestry, and so we would expect that the Guyana Forestry Commission would ensure that the code of practice, for example, for forestry are maintained, the laws for forestry are maintained, and there is a good working relationship between the miners or in the area of project implementation with and Guyana Forestry Commission. In the case of the GGMC, they will be responsible for ensuring that their aspects of the codes of practice for mining and similarly the regulations are implemented and carried out by the miner. I don't know if Romario has anything to add to that.
Yeah, I think the general idea behind this collaboration that you have between the different agencies, it's quite important for the project, and especially with the objective that the project has, it really it must ensure that all of these are on board, as he rightly comments there, that when we're speaking about mining, it it involves other sectors as well, and especially given that the intervention area is in the hinterland. This is where you have quite a challenge in monitoring. So we would, of course, as an agency, we are still trying to build capacity here. And in so doing, we need the other stakeholders involved. GLSC, which deals with the entire management of Guyana's lands, state lands, GTMC that deals with mining, and of course forestry, because often you find there are multiple uses of these very areas of interest that are involved in mining. So for the project, having them engaged is super important.
Definitely, and you would more so for certain need that human resource
Definitely.
and persons that are going to be able to go out there and get to remote locations and stuff like that. So you did make mention that UNDP is a part of this initiative. So could you tell me what role UNDP is actually playing in all of this?
So UNDP basically playing a supportive role. They would be they're in essence managing the budget of the project, and the budget is about 4.5 million US dollars coming directly from Jeff. So their responsibility is to ensure that that money is spent properly and it's accounted for. They will be doing the recruitment in terms of the consultancies that were needed and the project staff. So everything administrative wise in terms of project implementation, that would be their overarching responsibilities to ensure that the project meet the requirements of Jeff and ensure that their financial and procurement procedures are followed.
Great. So everybody here is a major stakeholder or a major player.
Correct.
I should
Everybody plays an important role.
Yes.
And it's just about, as it says in itself, mining is a connective kind of livelihood activity. So it doesn't depend on one sector alone. So we try to mimic what it does. If mining goes on in a particular area, there's socioeconomic benefit and there is creation of employment. So it must be attacked from the multifaceted perspective.
Great. I'm glad that you mentioned area because I know based on the project document, there were two more so specific areas that the project will more so look at, and that is communities within Mahdia, Region 8, and then Puruni, Region 7. So was there any specific reason why those areas were chosen? And, if so, why is it that we're featuring just them, and are you going to evolve and look at other areas?
To answer your question directly, there were 6 mining districts within Guyana, and there was a pre-study done before the study, which was a medium-sized project that was done between the period of 2014 to 2017, and that project looked specifically at the mining hotspots, and it would have used some specific criteria in terms of identify the hotspots. So one of the criteria they looked at was the levels of turbidity within the mining districts. And those 2 mining districts would have shown that high levels of turbidity coming out. And turbidity as a result of mining activity. So it gives the impression that there is a significant amount of mining activity or activities occurring in those 2 mining districts. And we piggybacking from that, the findings of that project, we would have chosen those areas for greater intervention. The knowledge and experience gained from those two, one of the outcome of the project is upscaling, knowledge upscaling. So we are going to use the knowledge and experience gained from those 2 mining districts to transform or to transfer more or less into the other mining districts. So yes, there will be knowledge transfer, and those information and knowledge gained from those that particular location would be used, and also the knowledge gained from other projects that were implemented by WWF and CI also would also be used to help to improve the outlook of mining. I don't know if
I think I do foresee that it's going to be replicated in other mining districts. So that, for me and as a whole, how I look at it from the EPA standpoint, the success of this is quite. It would depend on all of the outcomes being achieved, so as to have them transferred, as he rightfully says, to other districts. For example, even in the project's document, there are quite several references to other areas that are quite as heavily impacted by mining, Upper Mazarani being one, right?
Yeah.
And it is also based on several studies that have already been conducted on mercury levels, because we have to remember that mercury reduction is one of the key objective of the entire project once it's completed. So it is indeed expected that once we achieve what we can, the knowledge that we've gained, I think it would be something that can be rolled out in the other areas, and I would look forward to that as an environmentalist. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So it's a good and it's a bad thing, Mahdia and Puruni, because I've been able to visit both areas, and I know they are areas where a lot of mining actually occurs.
Yeah.
So a good and a bad thing for both areas, that the project is definitely going to actually look at those areas first, and then, for the other mining areas, definitely look out.
You also need to take into consideration the cost, so the accessibility of getting to these areas. Those areas are pretty accessible.
Yes, those are
So
very accessible.
in project management, you look at the cost and what the access. Accessing some of these mining communities are not easy, and it's very costly. So you also take into consideration that particular element of project.
Yes, that's certain.
I would say it's a pilot project.
Yeah.
For me, I would say it's a pilot project, and we have a lot to learn that I think as a country we can look forward to. And having all of the other agencies involved, it would just not be EPA benefiting, but the country as a whole.
Great. So that actually is something to think about. So outside of the agencies being able to build capacity and learn on the job, who more so is going to benefit from the Mainstreaming Biodiversity Project? Is it just miners? Can the communities look forward to benefits from this project? What is there to look forward to benefits-wise?
For you to add eventually. I like to look at it at different levels, and I'm going to start at the local level. So the communities where we're intervening, Mahdia, well, it's a town, and the surrounding areas, they are the ones that would, of course, have the direct benefit. And again, that directly comes from the effort to have better management in terms of the entire mining operations that you have in there. And of course, the project, and again, and which I would like to emphasize, really targets mercury, which is a serious health implication for communities. And as a matter of fact, the project aims to at least phase out about 10.2 metric tons, I believe, of mercury at the end of the project within that same intervention area. So that itself, I think, is a major benefit for communities, because definitely you can look, well, I wouldn't, it's not a promise, but we can say that in terms of health wise and the livelihood of communities, it's something that should be applauded, or an effort. Secondly, at a even at a local level, as parts of the project would look at involving women in terms of offering alternative livelihoods, which I must say is a part of the project trying to take on a gender responsive lens or an approach. And if you notice as well, many of these communities have like about 50% of them are women, all right? And mining areas really place a burden on some of these households. So if we can look at it from a more holistic perspective, some aspect of their lives would be influenced positively or impacted positively by the project. And of course, nationally, we're trying to ensure that a larger portion of the forests that you have on these lands of mining interest are under better maintenance, under conservation. And I think we have the mining, if you can correct me, mining policy framework that is going to come on board soon. This project also aims to support that. So I think in alignment with that, we can look forward to a better management of fresh waters, which is going to be quite a scarce commodity soon. Watersheds and all of these things. That's how I'm looking at it. So at a national and global level, I think these are going to be the major benefits of the project, apart from those local.
Great.
Yeah,
I like how
so-
you say that it's going to be, beneficial in tiers. So
Yeah,
that's something
yeah.
to look forward
So
to.
apart from Romaro's definition of who will be benefiting in terms looking at it categorically in terms of the levels, holistically the entire Guyana will be benefit from the project. Institutions that are involved directly in the project would see a complete review or assessment of their regulations. One aspect of the project we're looking at a strategic environmental assessment that basically will gather information and then not probably, but will give some kind of perspective as to where we are and what needs to be done. So you could see improved capacities within the organizations. You could see improved technologies in terms of the ability to collect samples, to analyze samples, the ability to reach miners, and also miners will be benefiting directly in terms of there will be improvement in the current techniques they use for mining in terms of prospecting. And also at the community level, you will see people becoming much more aware of what we call basically, as Romaro would have identified earlier, that we don't have the capacity to be through the
In
long-term
all those
better plan.
areas.
So you also
Yes.
need to have eyes and ears on the ground. So
Yes,
people,
definitely.
the community themselves would have that ability to have knowledge and to know when a creek is polluted or the turbidity level of that particular area would be is above what they consider to be normal. So holistically, the entire Guyana will be benefited from the project.
Okay, so we know that mining, is really a large sector in Guyana, and it makes up for, I think, 2/3 of our merchandise and income. But outside of, all the benefits that mining has, not only to our GDP, but I know it also indirectly influence other sectors. And when I say influence, I mean both positively and negatively. And we've talked about and alluded and elaborated on the effects of mining, but let's just go back to what exactly has mercury mining been doing to our communities. And, we've spoken about Mahdia and Puruni being two communities where mercury mining is actually happening, and it's on a large scale, and it's influencing the environment and human health. So I know mining is a very big sector here in Guyana, and the mining sector makes up for 2/3 of our merchandise and income. And, with such a high GDP, we can say that mining is also beneficial, but it also has some impacts. So over the years, we've focused and featured a lot about the effects of mining on communities. So could you just share with us, or just reiterate a lot of what you would have seen, or information that we would have regarding the impacts of mining on communities?
All right. I think as a traveler, anybody would really see firsthand what the impacts are, and in terms of communities that have founded their livelihoods on both forest resources and water resources, the way how mining is conducted, it impacts both land and aquatic resources as well, because it occurs on both media. All right. So looking at it from that perspective, firstly, land-based mining, I would say, it's it it leads to degradation, and with the practice of, I would say, almost literally no effort in reclamation in these areas, with the hazardous waste and toxic materials that are going to remain there, of course, eventually, it leads through discharges into waterways, and that is where the impacts of communities comes into play. Because, and again, I personally have followed studies and researched on mercury and in Guyana. Not, I think the most recent one was published for the Puruni area. So from that, what I gather is that because of communities relying on freshwater resources through the consumption of quite a huge amounts of fishes, or through what we call scientifically bioaccumulation, that I think has played a major role in how communities are affected, where you have excessive amounts of mercury being found in persons living within these areas. And secondly, of course, it also impacts water quality, and many communities would have uses for their rivers or for their waterways.
Yeah.
And not only that, ecologically, it hinders ecosystem functioning, spawning of those same very fishes that they depend on seasonally. But no one pays attention to that, of course, because, as you rightly
That's
said,
true.
it contributes significantly to
Yeah.
Guyana's economy. But with this project now, we are not stopping mining. We just want better oversight as to how it is conducted. All right. So I think that those are the two main impacts that it has had, which we are trying to target with the project.
Great. So, and in that way, obviously with the project and implementing it, you'll have both long and short term goals and solutions. So could you share with our audience what are some of the long and short term goals regarding this project?
The project basically look at four thematic, I will consider them thematic outcomes, and those outcomes basically look at the policy and the legal framework that exists. So if there is a weak legislation or regulations in the sector, then the policy through the strategic environmental assessment would identify that and hope to improve that, so you could have better control or better regulations to manage the impact. So that could be both the long term. The long term is to have proper regulations in place so as to better monitor. So the short term would be to conduct that assessment, to gather the information so as to inform the mining policy that the project hopes to develop. The other thing we talk about significantly that may result in the impact is people's capacity to undertake the activity they're doing, and similarly the regulators' capacity to monitor. So the project will be looking at that in terms of improving the that particular outlook in terms of capacity, whether it be having equipment or whether it be having training or whether it be having an avenue to access funds in terms of developing a mining fund that that miners and can tap into to adopt better technologies. And also the other aspect of it is the knowledge, building the knowledge of the communities or people who are operating in the sector so that they can know exactly when something is going wrong. They could have better sharing of their traditional knowledge and information within the sector. So all those will be short and long term outcomes or output that the project would be delivering on.
Great. So, not to put pressure on the implementing body, but that's quite a lot of work that is left to be done for this project. So, on that note, when you hear the title of the project, the Mainstreaming Biodiversity Project, you would want to think, what exactly does that have to do with mining? And why the protection of biodiversity?
Good question again. As Romario alluded to or highlighted earlier, we all know that Guyana is covered by a large percentage of forest. We know that we call ourselves the land of many water,
Yes, sir.
fresh water. We have some rare and endemic species present here, and they all serve an ecological importance. And I remember you yourself doing an interview on another, I think it was World Biodiversity Day,
Yes.
and speak to the importance of that. So the existence of all mankind on Earth depends on biodiversity, the recycling of the refresh, the whole process of photosynthesis in the tree plays in that, the whole process of filtering the water and so forth. So it is from those perspectives that there is global significance in biodiversity, and biodiversity plays an important role in pharmaceutical development and the continuation of life on Earth. So it is from that perspective that there's a need for those that particular, I want to say ecosystem, but if you look at it from a forestry perspective, that particular ecosystem needs to be protected. And mining of itself, because mining is an economic driver for the country, but yet it is also
A driver as well for
this
Biodiversity damage.
Yeah,
correct.
loss.
So there needs to be a balance between the two.
Definitely.
You can't have one at the detriment of the other. So there needs to be a balance between how we exploit for economic gains, and at the same time how do we protect and ensure that the lives of our local people continue, our traditional practices continue. So we want to have a balance and a continuation of those, and the resources there, as you know, when I was in university, there was always say sustainable development, to ensure that there is meaningful resource available for current generation and those to come. So we need to
Yes,
protect.
I always say that we need to ensure that there is a earth for our future generations to look forward to, and more so specifically biodiversity, because like you rightfully said, we've spoken about the fact that biodiversity is everything and anything around us, and
Yeah.
we need to ensure that we sustainably manage that biodiversity. Would you like to add anything to that, Romario?
Yeah, I think nationally we have to remind ourselves that Guyana is a signatory to
Yeah.
international agreements, it's Convention of Biological Diversity. Globally, we're trying to achieve the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. We're also
Yeah,
we have acceded to a number of environmental conventions basically. So it is in as a country's effort or national effort to commit to some of those agreements and the very objectives that we seek to accomplish with the project would gear us towards achieving those overarching goals. All right, and CBD I think is quite a one that is of importance, especially for Guyana, given our coverage of our forests, and that is the very reason why we again have involved other stakeholders. And just to add as well, why we have GDMC and GFC and others involved is because one of the outcome of the project is to really establish a mechanism in which we in which we're now going to be allocating concessions for mining while considering areas that have biological hotspots. All right. So I think that is one of the key important aspects of it, and especially tying it back to biodiversity. We don't want to be, I would say, exploiting areas that have high biological value or ecological value to us, not only as a country but globally. So we have to factor all of those in terms of shaping our country forward and balancing our mining sector as well as our environment.
Okay. So, legally, how have we been dealing with mining issues? Is there like a legal framework set up for dealing with issues within the mining sector? And I know we've been working on a national action plan. So, will this plan be influenced by the Mainstreaming Biodiversity Project?
So legally, the Guyana Geology and Mine Commission has responsibility for mining. The EPA has environmental oversight and ensure that um, the environmental statutes are complied with and that people adhere to the various of standard. The thing is that the project hopes to develop a mining policy. Want of a better word, is a long other name. So I will call it mining policy. So one of the first things we would do is basically look at the regulations for all the agencies who would have some kind of interrelation with mining, whether it be the Ambulance Act that deals with land, no land in managing those areas, the Guyana Lands and Surveys, public lands, how those are allocated, and so forth. So there will be a review of those legal instruments, and there will be a decision on the way forward in terms of that. But there is a legal system, and that system is governed mostly by the Guyana Geologists and Mine Commission in terms of how we address legally in mining issues. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I know over time there has been a wide research and data collection and analysis being done on the mining sector. So how is all of this research and data collection how is it going to be managed and kept, and will it be used within this project?
As I said before, there was a project that was done, a medium-sized project that was done in 2014 to 2017, there around. And that project, the information, as you can recognize, the information, the findings from that particular project would have fed into the establishment of this project. So information is never too much when it comes to understanding a particular sector and developing a policy for a particular sector. Sectors are not stagnant; they change with time as the economics of the world economic change. So is the sector change. As you can recognize, as gold price increases, the activity from mining increases too. So there's greater levels of pollution coming from. So information is never too much, on all information that is collected that could guide a particular process, and whether there can be synergies within other projects. We are going to use that to build the capacity for people within the sector. So all information that in terms of collected, whether via GGMC, whether via EPA, whether via GFC, would be used in terms of making a decision in terms of informing the policy and informing how the fund is structured, informing how we intervene in particular areas and so forth. So information is never too much.
It's never too much.
When
That's
it comes
so
to
true.
research and livelihoods, and people will always be affected by mining, and you always need to be current with your information if you're going to make any informed and relevant decision relating to a particular sector.
Great. So, as we conclude our discussion, is there anything that you would like to share with our audience regarding this project? What exactly it is that we can look forward to?
One thing you could look forward to is having better agencies equipped with modern technologies and modern current information in relation to how to manage the environment, and how we could expect also new technologies within the mine, as in demonstration sites, new technologies being used within the sector, mercury-free technologies, because at some point the country is going to move to the phasing out of mercury, if not already there. So you're going to have information available on new technologies that can be used. So capacities will be increased. There may be new regulations, improved regulations addressing the gaps that are between current regulations and so forth. So we should be in a better position at the end of the 84 months of the project to have a better understanding of what is happening in those particular areas and how we could intervene and address the issues in those particular areas, whether it be from the people's standpoint in terms of the communities, or whether it be from the standpoint of the miners, or whether it be from the standpoint of the regulators.
Great. So thank you to you gentlemen for being here with us and for sharing your knowledge on the Mainstreaming Biodiversity Project. And on that note, we will take a quick break and be right back.
Are you involved in a business or thinking about starting one? Do you know there may be environmental impacts from business activities? According to the Environmental Protection Act of 1996, businesses such as gas stations, rice mills, large-scale agriculture and poultry farms, large-scale mining and forestry operations, hotels, and resorts must be authorized. Persons proposing any of these activities need to submit an application for environmental authorization to the EPA.
Come around, please.
Morning. My name is Deborah. I just want to get some information.
Good morning. I am Odessa Duncan, Senior Environmental Officer. How may I assist you today?
Tell me something. They got this man next door by me breaking on this big building, and it's bare asbestos in the roof. I could remember hearing on your TV program that asbestos is dangerous to human health and the environment.
This is correct. The Environmental Protection Act states that any person or facility that is storing, treating, transporting, and/or disposing of hazardous waste material must be authorized by the EPA to do so.
Oh, but it's now I'm really hearing about this hazardous waste thing. Tell me something more.
Hazardous waste are waste material with properties that are dangerous or capable of having a harmful effect on human health and the environment, including things like paint, fertilizers, and pesticides, waste oil, and asbestos. These things have the potential to cause cancer, birth defects, kidney failure, and reproductive impairment, with children being at the highest risk. The environmental authorization in this case gives the legal right to transport, store, and dispose of this material in accordance with the EP Act Chapter 2005 Laws of Guyana. Now, this ensures you and your operation and your process is safe for the environment and human health.
So you mean to tell me that all them leftover Christmas paint that I got on in my kitchen sink, I need authorization from EPA to get rid of it?
No, Miss Deborah. These items, once used for household purposes, does not require environmental authorization from the EPA. However, you should still take necessary steps to ensure that these materials are stored and disposed of in an environmentally safe manner.
Thank you so much for the information. I go in and tell him that he needs an environmental authorization. Thank you.
At the Environmental Protection Agency, we believe that the environment is everybody's business. We can start caring for our planet by becoming more environmentally friendly in our everyday actions. Here's what you can do. Dispose of waste in a garbage bin. Clean our drains, yards, and carpets regularly. Take a reusable shopping bag to the market. Support local butchers and farmers to reduce packaged waste. Plant a kitchen garden, trees, and flowers. Compost your organic waste. Conserve water and electricity. Carry a reusable water bottle. These little acts are good for your health and that of the environment. Remember, healthy people work better and achieve more, and together, small actions make a big difference. For further information on how you can help, please contact the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, Ganges Street, Sophia, or telephone us at 225-5467. You can also visit our website, epaguyana.org, or our Facebook and Instagram pages.
Miss Sonia, wait, I want to ask you something.
Oh gosh,
Morning, Miss Sonia.
Morning, Miss Cheryl. I'm late for work.
I noticed the other day y'all had a big campaign with them police officers, so shutting down them people barbecue, wedding, dance. Man, how y'all expect these people to make money and survive?
Oh, Miss Cheryl, that is far from the truth. The EPA and the Guyana Police Force are actually working together to ensure that persons who conduct certain businesses and activities are authorized. We're trying to allow them to adhere to the noise regulations.
Well, this gotta be a new law. What law is this?
These laws were always in place. It's now that we're getting all these complaints at the agency, we are trying to enforce them. The Environmental Protection Act has been in place since 1996, and it states that persons and businesses must apply for environmental authorization before operating a sound-making device.
Well, girl, I never know this thing is part of the law.
So if you're keeping a barbecue or an open-air function, like a wedding or a concert, especially in your community, right, and you're playing a music system, you have to apply for a short-term noise permit. And for persons that operate in a business and you got generators and stuff, you have to apply for a long-term permit. And that is applicable to bars and hotspots and clubs also.
Well, now that you explain it, I understand it. It's unfair to the elderly, sick people, and even them little children.
That is correct. According to the World Health Organization, loud noise can cause stress, sleep deprivation, and hearing impairment. And I'm sure you wouldn't want that.
Oh, now I understand. Thank you for explaining it, Miss Sonia.
For more information, you can contact the EPA at 225-5471 or visit our office at Ganges Street, North Sophia, Georgetown.
Welcome back to the Environment Matters. I am your moderator, LaDonna Kisoon. Now, sitting with me in studio is two representatives from the Conservation International Guyana. And Conservation International is an organization that is here and in pursuit to aid in a greener development. So I will ask both representatives to go ahead and introduce themselves. So I'll start with Mr. Bernard.
Hi, LaDonna. I'm Curtis Bernard, and I'm the Executive Director at Conservation International Guyana.
Okay.
Hi, LaDonna. I'm Christia Ramlagan, and I'm the Jeff Communications Coordinator at CI Guyana.
Great. And thank you so much for being here with me today. Now, before we get into the real reason why you're here to talk about this initiative that you guys have going, could you tell me a little bit more about Conservation International and what exactly it is that you guys do?
Yeah, sure. Conservation International Guyana is a locally registered non-government organization. We are affiliated with Conservation International, an NGO registered in the United States and with offices in over 30 countries around the world. We focus mainly on, locally we focus mainly on helping to ensure that nature remains at the center of Guyana's development. Guyana is one of the few countries in the world that's blessed with quite a lot of nature, and as we look to develop and improve the living standards of our people, we want to ensure that we do not lose that natural wealth.
Perfect. So I know CI has a number of initiatives, not only to aid but also to support a lot of the work that the government is doing through greener development. So could you tell me a little bit about your roles and functions within that arena?
Yeah, sure. We work with governments, national governments, and we've been doing so ever since our registration in 1996. In fact, prior to our registration in 1996, Conservation International has been working in Guyana since the late 1980s. We work with from governments all the way down to individuals. We work with the private sector, all stakeholders really in pursuit of that goal, as I mentioned, of really putting nature at the center of development. So we've worked on things like supporting the establishment of the protected area system, supporting sustainable enterprises such as the Balata that you see coming out of NAPI, such as tourism, sustainable nature-based tourism, and so on. So that gives a sense as to the kinds of things that we really focus on.
Perfect. So that is a lot, actually. And I know you guys do a lot of community work too. Surprisingly, when I was at UG, that was how I actually heard about CI. We had to do some work in a community, and they were talking about projects that CI had actually been there to implement. So I guess CI had a little bit to do with my career path, if we could say so.
Yeah, we're very proud of our work with communities on the ground.
Yes. And I can see that through a lot of your initiatives, which is one of the reasons why you are here. So I know you guys have a not so brand new, but an initiative that you are currently implementing, and that is El Dorado Goal. I love the name. I think it speaks a lot to probably what you're doing and who you're doing it for. And as proud representatives, I want to know a little bit more about it, and I'm sure our audience does too. So just tell me a little bit about the initiative and how exactly did you come to choose that name?
Okay, so first of all, we chose the name El Dorado Gold. It was a bit of inspiration, of that story, the fabled city of El Dorado. And for many people in Guyana and abroad, believe that El Dorado, Guyana is the home of El Dorado. So that is where the inspiration came from. A lot of people in this sector are looking for their El Dorado. The initiative is being implemented with several partners, Conservation International Guyana, partners from the state, GGMC, Ministry of Natural Resources, the GGDMA, Guyana Women's Miners, the National Two Shelves Council, EPA. And basically we're working within the ASGM sector to improve the sector, improve the mining process. We focus on 4 areas: prospecting, processing, rehabilitation, and markets for responsibly mined gold. The GGDMA has been supporting the prospecting area, doing demonstrations within the various mining districts through their technical services unit, the TSU. And GGMC has been supporting with processing demonstrations, with mobile demonstrations in the use of alternative to mercury technology across mining districts. So we're just, working all together to improve the ASGM sector.
Perfect. And we know there is a lot actually happening there. And I know over time, through other working forces, we have been trying to implement different projects to see how we can best, curb the use of mercury mining here in Guyana. Now, I know this is not a project that, Conservation International Guyana usually takes on. So what really sparked your interest in, looking into the more so the mining sector here?
Yeah, well, really the driver for us, and the way I like to put it, is that for us, conservation is really about wise use of resources, and for us really using our resources in a way that do not deplete their ability to continue to provide for us now as well as for future generations. And as we were looking at the work that we've been doing across the country, as I mentioned before, we focused on many areas that people might traditionally think is conservation, but also realizing, we realized that the mining sector, especially the gold mining sector, and especially within the gold mining sector, the artisanal small and medium scale gold mining sector is an extremely important sector economically for Guyana. It employs quite a lot of persons. It provides livelihoods for lots of persons and provides for households, many households in Guyana. But at the same time, it also is one of the largest drivers of environmental impacts, especially deforestation and mercury pollution. But we recognize that in trying to realize results in reducing the impact of the sector on forests and reducing the use of mercury, that we really have to look at what we consider the entire supply chain. And we have to understand how it is that mining happens, how it is that it benefits people, and so that we can really seek to achieve those environmental improvements in a way that is very conscious and that very much secures the livelihood of the people who depend on the sector. So for us, we see it as a necessary project to work with. We're very, very pleased with the kind of partnerships that we've been able to build with the government agencies, the EPA, included in the GGMC, in particular in terms of the work that we've been able to get done on the ground with our partners, as well as, I think very importantly, the private miners and the mining associations, in particular the GGDMA, Guyana Gold and Diamond Miners Association, and the Guyana Women Miners Organization, as well as the National Syndicate.
Great. You know, a lot of times people stop to think that mining is just about going out there and finding gold or diamond, but there's a lot that really goes into it. And being in the field and having to go through the trails and see, you know, what the miners put up with, and you really have a different perspective, and now I say appreciation for the work that they do, and not only the work that they do, but you know, the impacts that it actually has, not only on the environment but also on them as humans. So kudos to CI for taking this initiative. So there's a question that I've been wanting to ask when I started going through the materials for the El Dorado Gold Initiative. Mr. Goldman, this is a character that you know, you guys have been using for this initiative, and I would really like to know what is the story behind Mr. Goldman.
Well, we saw the need as we planned out our education and awareness strategy, so to speak. We realized from data collected from surveys that they wanted some like a mascot, an avatar of sorts. So we developed this character who would help to tell stories of miners that we've interacted with. So the character Goldman is a former miner, or a retired miner who is all passionate about moving to a more responsible practices of mining. We've actually introduced him on Marundoy, the radio serial drama. Yes. Marundoy. He's been there twice, repping CI on our work, a lot of activities. But a lot of the stories you hear him talking about, it's actual experiences from miners, as well as activities that we here at CI Guyana are implementing on the ground.
Okay.
We plan to use him not only on radio, but he's in a lot of our literature, our booklets and fact sheets and so on, and you'll be definitely hearing more from him as time goes by.
Good. And he's available for use by any organization that's really focused on instituting changes or supporting changes towards responsible mining. So this is something that we really would like to contribute to the discourse and contribute to the efforts really to improve the practices in the sector.
Perfect. So the reason why I found it so interesting is because so Marundoy is a big part of my heart. I'm a part of Marundoy. So when I actually heard the character Mr. Goldman, I'm like, okay. And then when I was going through the material for the El Dorado Gold Initiative, I'm like, there is a connection here. Yes. So I'm really proud to hear, you know, and I always I like when education can become very entertaining, and it can, get everybody here, not just any, like the small kids or your preteens, but I do believe that people will often remember the things they hear once it's interesting to their ears. And as a previous teacher, I used to try to make material fun and engaging, so people want to read it and they want to be a part of it, and it should be something that you're doing. So, hearing Mr. Goldman and Marunda and, hearing about his experiences and then being introduced to him through CI's work, I'm like, see what you're doing here. But yes, I do commend you on that initiative. That was, like real off the bat work to think about. So back to El Dorado Gold Initiative. So with all that is happening, what are some of the major activities that has been completed so far in this process?
I'll speak from a communication level. We've had several interactions, and that's something that I personally appreciated. I had this one vision getting into the field. I had, preconceived notions and perceptions. And once I got on the ground and I started to interact with different stakeholders, miners, persons from local communities, that really helped me crafting of messages and development of tools. We've had education and awareness sessions in regions 1 and 8. We've recently just returned from region 7. But it's been good. A lot of interacting. There's high interest on the ground from miners and other local community members to learn more about our work and to get involved however they could at the community level.
And I think for the wide initiative as well, I would say that one of the things that together the partners have really been able to achieve is a true partnership. Because, as we mentioned, it involves government agencies, private sector actors, NGOs, indigenous NGOs like the NTC, sitting around the table, really discussing and agreeing on how we can best implement action. So I would say that that's one of the major achievements of the work that we've been doing together so far. But in the 4 pillars that Christia mentioned before, in the first pillar of prospecting, the GGDMA, through the support of the initiative, was actually able to set up a technical services unit that has been demonstrating and assisting miners with the implementation of low-impact prospecting, so that they can actually locate gold before clearing land to try to mine that gold. This is now really picking up within the industry, and it's a necessary part not only to reduce the impact on the environment, but also it makes economic sense that if you're not going to clear an area without producing gold, then you should be doing better. And they've also been working on the demonstration of improved methods of recovery as well. And that's also a very key part of the responsible mining work, because with low rates of recovery, when an area is mined once the price of gold goes up or technology changes, even if that area is reclaimed, then the area will be cleared again and mined all over again. So improving the recovery is an important part. The GGMC and GGDMA especially have been doing quite a lot of work on the ground. And we are actually about to really, in the full collaboration as well, establish some permanent or long-term demonstration sites for mercury-free technologies and practices. In terms of restoration work, the third pillar of work within this initiative, we've done some, we've collaborated with Boise State University in the US to look at some pioneering ways in which we can begin to understand how best we can work with the sector to improve the rate at which the lands that are mined and mined out can be recovered or put into productive after use. And on the side of markets, we've actually developed a brand, El Dorado Gold, that we are now really trying to understand what the demand could be for responsibly mined gold from Guyana, not only locally through the jewelry sector, for example, but also internationally, as there's a big push internationally now for responsibly produced materials, especially in fashion and technology, and gold is used quite a lot in those two industries.
That's certain. All right. So that is definitely a lot that you would have accomplished so far. So I commend you on that. And I must say, you know, community engagement and interaction always goes a long way. I think you learn the most when you get into a community and able to physically interact with persons. And on that note, given the present pandemic and all that has been happening, how much has that influenced the work that you would have done or would have had to, you know, execute so far?
Well, first and foremost, it has delayed the setup of this permanent demonstration site, because if it wasn't for COVID, we would have already had at least 2 sites up and running. But nonetheless, we have been able to reach stakeholders. The good thing is that we have partners. It's not CI alone. So a lot of our partners have been disseminating communication tools that have been produced under Eldorado Gold. So it's just that we have not been there physically on the ground, but Eldorado is very much there and widely disseminated. Yes.
Yes, that's sure. So what more can we look forward to with regards to Eldorado Gold Initiative? You know, not just as being a part of a governing agency, but, you know, for all our miners and our audience who are involved in mining or has somebody involved in mining, what can they look forward to coming out of the Eldorado Gold Initiative?
All right, so this initiative for us is, as I mentioned, it's a long-term initiative, but immediately, as we were mentioning, the demonstration sites are a critical part of what we really need to get on the ground. One of the first things I learned from interacting with miners is that they basically adopt what they see working, because it's very risky to invest quite a lot of money in technologies that you are not sure will actually give you the returns that you're looking for. So getting the demonstration sites and really having people see whether it's possible to mine gold in a more responsible manner, where you're not using as much mercury, or you're not using mercury at all, if you're of the scale that can really use the mercury-free equipment that are available, and actually do better economically, both economically and environmentally. So I think that's the biggest thing that you can look forward to immediately. We're also looking to have a specific focus, as you mentioned, working with communities. It's really near and dear to what CI Guyana does. And so we're actually about to implement a project that really focuses on taking what we have learned so far and working with the NTC and indigenous communities to implement those practices in communities that mine, indigenous communities who mine or have mining on their lands. So this is really exciting for us, as well as you would imagine. And in work with communities and work with people in particular, safeguards also are key in how we work. So really, that's what is could be looked forward to in the near future for us.
Great. So, you know, not to put pressure on CI Guyana, but I am definitely looking forward to it, and more so all the collaborative work that you guys have alluded to during our conversation. So I wish you the best of luck, and, you know, I look forward to hearing more about Mr. Goldman and all that CI has planned for the Eldorado Gold Initiative. Now, for any person that is actually listening to us, or for the persons that are actually listening to us and have an interest in finding out more about the Eldorado Gold Initiative, how could they more so do that?
Well, I'd say to follow us on Facebook, Conservation International Guyana. You can also check out our website, www.conservation.gy. And to learn more about the demonstration sites in particular, and to see all of the materials that we've produced under Eldorado Gold, you can visit planetgold.org/Guyana.
Great. And I know we have a few materials, right, at the EPA, more so booklets and some posters. So if you're interested, you could also just stop in and we will be freely willing to give you that information. I always say you can come to EPA and you can definitely leave with something. We are rich when it comes to materials. So just remember that. Quite rich. All right. Thank you guys so much for being here and for chatting with us and telling us about the El Dorado Gold Initiative. So we have been talking with Conservation International Guyana. Thank you for tuning into the Environment Matters. I have been your moderator, LaDonna Kisoon. I do hope that this episode would have inspired you to not only share the information with your friends and your family, but also your neighbors or anyone that you would have come into contact with that works within the mining sector. If you need any more information, feel free to contact the Environmental Protection Agency via any of our resources. Also, please remember that this program is rebroadcasted right here on NCN and on eNetworks Channel 1. Check our Facebook page and our Instagram for all details regarding time and date. Do stay safe, Guyana. I am LaDonna Kisoon.
Guyana is one of the greenest places on Earth, with 18.4 million hectares of primary forest covering 87% of our country, with deforestation rates holding at less than 0.05%. Guyana is a unique story of hope in the face of an accelerating global environmental crisis. Although small, most of this deforestation is driven by Guyana's gold mining sector, which contributes significantly to the country's economy and provides direct benefits to over 15,000 artisanal and small miners.
In Guyana, all three sectors that we recognize in mining are legal: large, medium, and small scale. And due to the economic contribution that the small and medium scale makes to Guyana in general, I don't think we could diminish its importance.
Reducing the impacts of mining will require new approaches and innovative solutions. This is what CI Guyana's Jeff Gold Child Project is working to achieve.
The Jeff Gold Project is focused specifically on reducing and eliminating the use of mercury, and it is being implemented in partnership with a NORAD-funded project that focuses on reducing the drivers of deforestation in the mining sector. Together, these two projects make up our Responsible Mining Initiative.
Beginning in September 2018, Guyana's Jeff Gold Project has forged new partnerships between civil society and members of the public and private sectors, bringing together a non-traditional group of stakeholders. We are now working to support more coordination between these players in their efforts to reduce mercury use. Through these collaborations, the project has identified new technologies for mercury-free processing that are appropriate for Guyana's context. Although the technology for mercury-free processing is now widely available, few miners in Guyana have experience using them, and many remain skeptical.
Well, I've been interested for long years, but still I feel it difficult to work without mercury because I never see it happen, and I've been interested to learn. And if it could, well, we're going to take a chance.
We have since collaborated on a series of equipment demonstrations, and we are now working to establish fixed demonstration sites in 3 of Guyana's ecologically important landscapes. In preparation for this next phase of equipment demonstrations, we paid a visit to one such site in Maturi, French Guiana. Multiple stakeholder representatives participated in the exchange, with the information and experience gained supporting improved project implementation in Guyana. This hands-on, practical approach is at the heart of the project's education, awareness, and behavior change drive. From radio programs to online avatars to personal testimonials, we are using innovative ways of communicating information on mercury and promoting new technologies, approaches, and options to reduce and ultimately eliminate its use. For many small miners, however, the cost of these new technologies keep them out of reach.
No, there is nowhere you could go. You have to work on your own to raise that money to do whatever you want to do. There is no bank that lends you no loan to do mining. You have to work and save that money too.
Even self like how you are bringing this sluice box thing or whatever, you got to work and get your money to get things done.
The project will work on national financing mechanisms for mercury-free operations and identify market opportunities for mercury-free Guyanese gold. Several research projects and first-of-their-kind assessments of the mining sector have been launched under the project and are now being used to inform and improve our work moving forward.
Under the El Dorado Gold Responsible Mining Initiative, we want to better understand each stage of the production chain. And using this knowledge, we want to identify realistic solutions both in the field and at the policy level. Solutions that make sense environmentally and economically.
As the project continues to roll out, we are prioritizing safeguards, including the establishment of the accountability and grievance mechanism, gender mainstreaming, and the use of the rights-based approach throughout project activities.
The Jeff Gold project is intentionally ambitious, and we've already faced challenges that have caused us to think outside of the box and take new approaches. But it's worth the effort because we at CI Guyana believe that we need to move beyond just talking about the impacts of mining, and we need to engage the sector and work with them to come up with real and lasting solutions that not only result in reduced impacts on the environment and human health, but that addresses the needs of the thousands of men and women that depend on this sector for their livelihoods. We've only just begun, so stay tuned.